Julie assumed I wouldn't care, but she was mistaken. Reflecting on our shared past, memories of our high school days came flooding back. We were practically glued to each other despite the occasional spat. We shared our first intimate moment before prom, and marriage soon followed after graduation. These thoughts occupied my mind as I sat at my desk, sipping my coffee with a smile. Julie, or Juliet as she was formerly known, had always held a special place in my heart. My phone rang, the number unfamiliar. I hesitated for a moment, given that unknown numbers often meant scam calls or unwanted solicitations. As someone who frequently handed out business cards, I received my fair share of these nuisance calls. However, seeing Julie's office number flash on the screen, I answered, puzzled as to why she would call from work instead of her cell phone. Hello? I greeted. Hey, this isn't Julie, a male voice responded. I'm Richard Taylor, but you can call me Rick. Rick? I thought, confused. What's going on? Why are you calling from my wife's office? Julie works in insurance, he started. I sell high-end RVs. We're managing to get by, living at my mom's house rent-free while saving up. We're happy where we are.
I'm John Michaels.
I work with your wife. Can we meet? Why? I asked, my curiosity piqued and anxiety creeping in. I have some information about Julie, he said. Can we meet at Jake's Café at noon? What kind of information? I demanded, my heart pounding. I believe she's seeing someone else, he stated bluntly. Meet me at Jake's at noon. Gray suit, red tie. Click. My mind was racing. A stranger just implied that my wife might be unfaithful. What if it was true? Or worse, what if it was just a cruel joke? Noon couldn't come fast enough as I wrestled with whether to meet him or dismiss it all as nonsense. By noon, I found myself standing outside Jake's Café. A man approached, asking for John Taylor. Yes, that's me, I confirmed, and we decided to walk to a nearby park for some privacy. I've been working with your wife for a couple of months, Rick began. We're in the same department. It didn't take long for me to notice her growing closeness with a coworker named Steve Martin. They have lunch together every day, openly flaunting their friendship. I felt a knot form in my stomach as he continued. Today, the entire office overheard them planning a night at the Westin Hotel. They're going out to dinner, dancing, and spending the night there. Right now, she's out shopping for the occasion. How is she planning to explain this to me? I asked, my voice shaking. She's banking on your love for her to explore this other relationship, believing it won't harm your marriage since you're her only past. She genuinely thinks it won't affect your relationship, which is why they're so open about it. Why are you telling me this? I demanded, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. I was married for 9 years, Rick explained. My wife cheated, and the legal system favored her. Now she and her lover live in a house I pay for while I scrape by in a dingy apartment. This is my chance to help someone avoid my fate. After our conversation, he left me to ponder my future. If his words were true, my marriage was in jeopardy. The thought terrified me. I recalled my childhood, watching my mother suffer through my father's drinking and infidelity. He boasted about his affairs, even dragging me into his mess. I couldn't let Julie's potential betrayal go unchallenged. The thought of confronting Julie or ignoring the news was tearing me apart. In sales, you learn that waiting is never an option. You have to act. But how do you act on uncertain ground? After considering all possibilities, I decided to hire a private investigator to uncover the truth. I picked one randomly from the phone book and called, meeting him within 30 minutes. 2 hours and a substantial fee later, we had a plan in place. Driving home, I was unsure how to act. Should I hint at what I knew or maintain the facade? Revealing my suspicion might derail her plans or make her rethink them altogether. Opting for normalcy, we had dinner together, though it was challenging to act normal. She seemed composed, either a skilled actress or genuinely unbothered. Later, she retired to bed early while I lay awake, my mind in turmoil. At dawn, she left without our customary goodbye kiss, highly unusual for a Friday. I called in sick and sought legal advice on divorce. The attorney warned about the complexities of infidelity and referred me to his wife, a strict advocate for fidelity. I shared my conversation with Rick with her. Her first question was why I involved a lawyer and investigator based on a stranger's tale. I explained my aversion to infidelity rooted in my parents' history. She suggested confirming Rick's story and noted that if Julie was as confident as he claimed, she had little to lose by straying. I reiterated my zero tolerance for affairs and demanded Julie's return by Monday if she proceeded with her plans. She assured me the paperwork would be ready by 1 p.m. Back at my desk, I sold a motorhome to a senior couple nearing 50 years of marriage. The Jacobsons exemplified the bond one desired. As they finalized their purchase, I offered a discount as a gesture of goodwill. They left happy, providing me a glimpse of the future I hoped for with Julie. I contacted my investigator and confirmed his readiness. At 5:30, I arrived home to find Julie's car parked as usual. Inside, no scent of dinner lingered, indicating she hadn't started cooking. Remaining composed, I placed the package from the investigator on the mantel and waited in a chair. Soon, Julie descended, dressed stunningly in attire matching Rick's description. She carried an overnight bag. "You look amazing. What's the occasion?" I asked. "A coworker suggested we go out," she replied. "Like a date?" I pressed. "Yes," she confirmed. "And what kind of date?" I probed further. "We thought since you're my only past, I might be interested in exploring with someone else. Dinner, dancing, then a hotel," she admitted. I was astonished by her composure, while my own calm demeanor dissolved into a cold knot in my stomach. "You can't be serious. Spending the night with another man? I won't agree to that," I protested. "It's no big deal, just one night," she brushed off. "If you go, our marriage is over," I declared firmly. A car horn interrupted us. "That's him," she announced, moving towards the door. I blocked her path, pleading with her to reconsider. Ignoring me, she attempted a kiss, then left. I switched off the hidden recorder and spent 2 hours clearing her belongings from the house, even taking her personal documents and jewelry. Unable to sleep, I busied myself with mundane tasks, my mind numb with turmoil. The next morning, the house felt eerily quiet. The absence of Julie's usual morning routine was unsettling. My mind was in overdrive, replaying the events of the previous night. I decided to take action, unable to sit still. First, I reached out to my private investigator, who assured me he was following Julie's movements and would provide updates as they came. I arrived at the dealership early, immersing myself in work to keep my mind occupied. By mid-morning, my phone buzzed with a message from the investigator. "Confirmed sighting at the Hilton. Details to follow." My stomach churned. It was one thing to suspect an affair. It was another to have confirmation. Around noon, my office phone rang. "John Taylor," I answered. "Mr. Taylor, this is Mark Johnson. I'm with Taylor Investigations. I have some information you might find useful. Can we meet in person?" "Of course," I replied, setting up a meeting at a nearby coffee shop within the hour. As I entered the coffee shop, Mark was already seated in a corner booth, a folder in front of him. He looked up, offering a professional yet empathetic smile. "Mr. Taylor, thanks for meeting on short notice." "No problem. What do you have for me?" I asked, sliding into the booth across from him. He opened the folder, revealing photographs and detailed notes. "Last night, Julie checked into the Hilton with a man identified as Steve Martin. They had dinner in the hotel's restaurant, then proceeded to a suite upstairs. Here are some photos of them together." I glanced through the pictures, my heart sinking. There was no mistaking Julie's face or the intimate nature of their interactions. "And these are from last night?" "Yes," Mark confirmed. "They spent the night together. We have footage of them entering the room and not leaving until this morning. Additionally, we have a record of their reservations and charges billed to the room." I nodded, absorbing the information. "This confirms what Rick told me," I said quietly. "There's more," Mark continued. "I followed them this morning. They had breakfast in a nearby cafe, then went shopping together before parting ways. Julie went to her office, while Steve returned to his apartment. Is there any indication of how long this has been going on?" I asked, dreading the answer. "Based on our observations and their behavior, it appears to have been happening for at least a few months," Mark replied, sympathy in his eyes. I thanked Mark, paid him, and left the coffee shop, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. The betrayal was real, and now I had the evidence to prove it. As I drove back to the dealership, I realized that confrontation was inevitable. But how to proceed? I decided to visit Julie at her office. I needed to see her face to face, to hear her side of the story. I arrived at the insurance company where she worked and asked the receptionist to call her. Within minutes, Julie appeared, looking surprised to see me. "John, what are you doing here?" she asked, attempting to maintain her composure. "We need to talk," I said, keeping my voice steady. She nodded, leading me to a small conference room. Once inside, she closed the door and turned to face me. "What's going on?" "I know about you and Steve," I stated bluntly, watching her reaction. Julie's face paled, and she sank into a chair. "How did you find out?" "Does it matter?" I retorted. "What matters is that you've been lying to me." "Why, Julie? Why would you do this?" She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "I don't know. I was curious, I guess. I thought maybe it wouldn't hurt our marriage. I still love you, John. I never wanted to lose you." "Curious?" I echoed, incredulous. "You jeopardized our marriage because you were curious?" Tears welled up in her eyes.
I'm sorry.
"I never meant for it to go this far. I didn't think it would affect us." "Didn't think it would affect us?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You spent the night with another man, Julie. How could you think that wouldn't affect us?" She sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "I was wrong. I see that now. Please, John, can we fix this? Can we work through it?" I took a deep breath, trying to control my anger. "I don't know, Julie. Right now, all I feel is betrayal and hurt. You shattered the trust between us." She looked up, her eyes pleading. I'll do anything, John. Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. Just give us a chance. I stood up, feeling the weight of the situation bearing down on me. I need time to think. I can't make any promises right now. Julie nodded, wiping her tears. I understand. Just please don't give up on us. I left the office, my mind a jumbled mess of emotions. The conversation had provided some clarity, but also left me more confused than ever. Could I ever trust her again? Was there any hope for reconciliation? That evening, I sat alone in our living room, the silence deafening. The investigator's package still lay on the mantel, a stark reminder of the day's revelations. I picked it up, flipping through the documents and photographs once more. The evidence was irrefutable. As I pondered my next steps, my phone buzzed. It was my lawyer. John, I've reviewed the evidence you sent over. We have a strong case for divorce if that's the route you want to take. I'm not sure yet, I replied honestly. I need more time to decide. Take your time, she advised. But know that we're ready whenever you are. I thanked her and hung up, my thoughts turning to Julie's plea for another chance. Could we really salvage our marriage after such a betrayal? Or was it better to cut our losses and move on? The next morning, I decided to meet with Julie again, this time in a more neutral setting. We agreed to meet at a local park. As we walked along the path, I spoke first. I've been thinking about what you said, about wanting to fix things, I began. I need to know if you're truly committed to making this work. I am, John, she replied earnestly. I'll do whatever it takes. Then we'll start with counseling, I said. But you need to understand, this won't be easy. Rebuilding trust will take time and effort from both of us. Julie nodded. I'm willing to do the work. I just want us to be okay again. As we sat on a bench, watching the sun set, I felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be challenging, but perhaps there was a chance for us to heal. Only time would tell. The following week, our first counseling session loomed ahead. I hoped it would bring clarity, but anxiety gnawed at me. Could talking through our issues really mend the rift Julie's affair had created? I had my doubts, but I owed it to our years together to try. Our counselor, Dr. Allen, greeted us with a warm smile. Welcome, John and Julie. Let's start by discussing what brought you here. Julie spoke first, her voice trembling. I made a mistake. I hurt John by getting involved with someone else. I regret it deeply and want to rebuild our marriage. Dr. Allen turned to me. John, how do you feel about what Julie has said? I feel betrayed, I admitted. Trust is shattered, and I don't know if we can rebuild it. But I'm here to try.
Dr. Allen nodded.
Rebuilding trust is a process that requires time, effort, and honesty. Let's explore what led to this situation and how we can move forward. Over the next hour, we delved into our relationship, uncovering buried resentments and unspoken needs. Julie's affair, she revealed, stemmed from feeling neglected and unappreciated. She admitted her actions were wrong but explained she sought attention and validation she felt was lacking at home. I, too, had my grievances. Work stress often left me irritable and distant. I hadn't realized how my behavior had pushed Julie away. As we aired our grievances, a semblance of understanding began to form. But understanding wasn't the same as forgiveness. After the session, we walked to the car in silence. Once inside, Julie turned to me. Thank you for coming, John. I know it wasn't easy. It wasn't, I replied. But if we're going to do this, we need to be all in. No more secrets. She nodded, a flicker of hope in her eyes. No more secrets. That evening, we decided to have dinner at home and talk more openly. I prepared our favorite meal, spaghetti carbonara, while Julie set the table. As we ate, the conversation flowed more freely than it had in months. Do you remember our first date? She asked, smiling softly. Of course, I said, recalling the memory. We went to that little Italian place downtown. You wore that blue dress, and I was so nervous I spilled wine on myself. She laughed, a genuine sound that warmed my heart. And I thought it was endearing. You were so sweet and sincere. We continued reminiscing, the shared memories a reminder of the bond we'd once had. It was a small step, but it felt significant. The next day, I received a call from the private investigator, Mark. John, I have some additional information you might want to see. Can you come by my office? I agreed and headed to his office after work. Mark greeted me and handed over a new folder. I've continued monitoring Steve Martin. There's something you need to know. I opened the folder to find more photos and documents. One photo caught my attention immediately. Julie and Steve in an intimate embrace, taken just 2 days ago. My heart sank. Had she lied about wanting to work on our marriage? I thought this affair was over, I said, my voice strained. Apparently not, Mark replied. It seems she's still seeing him, despite what she's told you. Rage and hurt welled up inside me. I thanked Mark and left, my mind racing. How could she deceive me again? Especially after promising to be honest. That evening, I confronted Julie as soon as I walked through the door. We need to talk, I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. She looked up, surprised by my abruptness. What is it, John? I met with the private investigator today, I began, throwing the folder on the table. Care to explain this? Julie paled as she looked at the photos. John, I can explain. Explain what? I snapped. How you promised to be honest and then continued seeing him behind my back? Tears streamed down her face. I was confused. I didn't know how to break it off completely, but it meant nothing, John. I swear. Nothing? I echoed, incredulous. It meant nothing, but you still went back to him? How can I believe anything you say? She sobbed uncontrollably, but my anger overshadowed any sympathy I might have felt. This is it, Julie. I can't do this anymore. I'm filing for divorce. Her sobs turned to wails as the gravity of my words hit her. Please, John, don't do this. Give me one more chance. Why should I? I retorted. You've had your chances, and you blew them. I'm done. I stormed out of the house, needing air. I drove aimlessly, trying to process the betrayal and the end of my marriage. Eventually, I found myself at a quiet park, where I sat on a bench, staring at the night sky. The next day, I called my lawyer. I want to proceed with the divorce. Julie's continued infidelity has left me no choice. Understood, John, she replied. I'll start the paperwork and serve her as soon as possible. As I hung up, a sense of finality settled over me. The marriage was over, and I needed to start thinking about my future without Julie. It was a daunting thought, but also a necessary one. In the following weeks, I focused on myself. I reconnected with old friends, immersed myself in hobbies I had neglected, and started therapy to work through my emotions. It was a slow process, but each day felt a little lighter. One afternoon, as I was leaving the therapist's office, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. John, this is Rick. Just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. If you ever need to talk, I'm here. Surprised but touched by his concern, I replied, Thanks, Rick. I'm doing better. It's been tough, but I'm getting through it. Appreciate the offer. His response was immediate. Glad to hear that. Remember, you're not alone in this. As I walked to my car, I reflected on the kindness of strangers and the unexpected support I'd found in the most unlikely places. It reminded me that despite the betrayal and pain, there were still good people out there who cared. Returning home that evening, I found a letter in the mail from Julie. It was an apology, filled with regret and sorrow. She acknowledged her mistakes and expressed a desire to make amends, even if only as friends. I read the letter several times, my emotions a whirlwind. Despite everything, a part of me still cared for her. But trust, once broken, is hard to mend. I decided to write back, acknowledging her apology but making it clear that friendship was not something I could offer at this time. As I sealed the envelope, I felt a sense of closure. This chapter of my life was ending, and while it hadn't turned out as I had hoped, it had taught me valuable lessons about love, trust, and resilience. The following weeks were a roller coaster of emotions. The divorce papers had been served, and Julie's tearful pleas for another chance echoed in my mind. Each day felt like a new battle between my lingering feelings for her and the reality of her betrayal. One morning, as I was getting ready for work, my phone rang. It was my lawyer. John, we need to discuss the settlement terms. Julie's lawyer has proposed some conditions that you might want to consider. All right, I replied, my heart heavy. Let's meet this afternoon. At the lawyer's office, I was greeted with a stack of documents detailing the proposed settlement. Julie was requesting spousal support and a share of our joint assets, including the house we had built together. I felt a wave of anger. She had been unfaithful, yet she expected to benefit from our shared life. These terms are outrageous, I said, my voice strained. She's the one who cheated. Why should she get anything? My lawyer, a seasoned professional named Sarah, nodded sympathetically. I understand your frustration, John. Unfortunately, infidelity doesn't always negate spousal support, especially since you've been married for a long time and both contributed to the household. I sighed, rubbing my temples. So what are my options? Sarah laid out the possible strategies. We could contest the terms in court, which would be a lengthy and costly process, or we could negotiate a more reasonable settlement. Going to court could drag this out for months, maybe even years, she explained. And there's no guarantee the judge will rule in your favor on all points. The thought of prolonging this ordeal was unbearable. I wanted closure, to move on with my life. Let's try to negotiate, I decided. But I won't agree to everything. She needs to understand there are consequences to her actions. We spent the next few hours drafting a counteroffer. I agreed to a reduced spousal support amount and offered to split our assets, excluding the house. Sarah assured me she would present these terms to Julie's lawyer and push for a swift resolution. Leaving her office, I felt a mix of relief and apprehension. This was a significant step toward finalizing the divorce, but it was also a harsh reminder of the life Julie and I had built together and were now dismantling. That evening, I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. The house felt emptier than ever, the silence almost oppressive. I had taken down most of our photos, unable to bear the constant reminders of happier times. My thoughts drifted to our last counseling session, where Julie had seemed genuinely remorseful. Was there any part of me that still wanted to try? Or was this truly the end? As the sun dipped below the horizon, my phone buzzed with a message from Rick. "Hey John, just checking in. How are things going?" I appreciated his concern, though our interactions had been brief. "Thanks for asking, Rick. It's been tough, but I'm getting through it. Working on the settlement terms now." His reply was immediate. "I can only imagine. Stay strong. If you ever need to talk, I'm here." Feeling a surge of gratitude, I responded, "Thanks, Rick. I might take you up on that." The next day, I immersed myself in work, trying to keep my mind off the ongoing legal battle. The dealership was busy, and I welcomed the distraction. Around noon, I received a call from Sarah. "John, I have some good news. Julie's lawyer has agreed to the counteroffer. We can move forward with finalizing the divorce." A wave of relief washed over me. "That's great news, Sarah. Thank you for your hard work on this. We'll need you to come in to sign the final papers," she continued. "Once that's done, we can file everything with the court." That afternoon, I met Sarah to sign the papers. Each signature felt like closing a chapter, a step closer to reclaiming my life. As I left her office, a sense of finality settled over me. This was really happening. My marriage was ending. In the days that followed, I focused on rebuilding. I reconnected with old friends, started new hobbies, and spent more time outdoors. Each day was a small step toward healing, but the nights were the hardest. The loneliness was palpable, and the memories of Julie haunted me. One evening, as I was sorting through some old boxes, I came across a journal I had kept during the early years of our marriage. Flipping through the pages, I was reminded of the love we had shared, the dreams we had built together. It was painful, yet cathartic, to revisit those memories. I decided to write down my thoughts, hoping it would help me process my emotions. The words flowed freely, capturing my pain, anger, and lingering affection for Julie. It was a raw, honest account of our journey, and it felt like a necessary step in my healing process. A few days later, I received an unexpected call from Julie's father, Mark. We had always gotten along well, and his voice was filled with concern. "John, I hope you're doing all right. I wanted to talk to you about Julie." I hesitated, unsure of where this conversation was heading. "I'm managing, Mark. What about Julie?" "She's not doing well," he admitted. "The divorce has hit her hard. She regrets everything and misses you terribly. I know it's not my place, but is there any chance you two could at least talk?" A part of me wanted to shut the door on any further contact, but another part remembered the good times and the person Julie had once been. "I don't know, Mark. A lot has happened, and I need time to heal." "I understand," he said. "Just think about it. She's really struggling." After we hung up, I sat in silence, contemplating his words. Julie's actions had caused immense pain, but she was still human, dealing with her own regrets and sorrow. Could I find it in myself to offer her a chance at closure, even if reconciliation was off the table? The following week, I decided to meet with Julie one last time. We agreed to meet at a quiet cafe, a neutral ground where we could talk without the weight of our past bearing down on us. Julie arrived looking worn but hopeful. As we sat down, an awkward silence enveloped us. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. "Thank you for meeting me, John. I know I don't deserve it, but I appreciate it." I nodded, feeling a mix of emotions. "I wanted to hear you out, Julie. This hasn't been easy for either of us." She took a deep breath. "I'm so sorry for everything I did. I was selfish and thoughtless, and I regret it every day. I know I can't undo the past, but I wanted you to know how truly sorry I am." Her words were sincere, and for the first time, I saw the depth of her remorse. It didn't erase the pain, but it offered a sense of closure. "I appreciate your apology, Julie. I really do. But we both need to move on from this. Holding on to the past will only keep us stuck." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I understand. I hope we can both find happiness, even if it's apart." As we parted ways, a sense of peace washed over me. The difficult decision to end our marriage had been made, and while the future was uncertain, I felt ready to face it. Returning home, I realized that this new chapter in my life was an opportunity for growth and renewal. The journey ahead would be challenging, but I was determined to embrace it with resilience and hope. The finalization of my divorce marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. It was a bittersweet moment, closing the door on years of memories, both good and bad, and stepping into a future filled with uncertainty but also possibility. With the paperwork filed and the legal process behind me, I was ready to embrace the new beginning that lay ahead. The first step in reclaiming my life was making my house truly mine. I decided to redecorate, transforming the space that once held memories of Julie into a reflection of my own tastes and interests. I started with the living room, replacing old furniture with new pieces that brought a sense of warmth and comfort. Bright, Bold colors replaced the muted tones Julie had preferred, and I adorned the walls with artwork that spoke to my soul. As I worked on the house, I found solace in the process. Each change, each improvement, felt like a step toward healing. The physical transformation mirrored the internal one I was undergoing. Friends noticed the changes and commented on how different the place felt. More alive, more me. One Saturday, while browsing through a local art fair for pieces to decorate my home, I ran into an old college friend, Laura. We hadn't seen each other in years, and after the initial surprise, we decided to grab a coffee and catch up. Laura had always been easy to talk to, and our conversation flowed naturally, filled with laughter and shared memories. "So, what have you been up to all these years?" Laura asked, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. I gave her a brief overview of my life, including the recent divorce. She listened attentively, her expression compassionate. "I'm sorry to hear about that, John. Divorce is never easy," she said, placing a hand on mine. "Thanks, Laura. It's been tough, but I'm getting through it," I replied. "How about you? How's life been treating you?" Laura shared stories of her adventures, her travels, and her career in graphic design. She had built a successful business and seemed genuinely happy with her life. Her positive energy was infectious, and I felt a spark of hope for my own future. As we parted ways, we exchanged numbers and made tentative plans to meet up again. It felt good to reconnect with someone from my past, someone who knew me before everything became complicated. Laura's presence was a reminder that life goes on and that there are always opportunities for new beginnings. Inspired by our meeting, I decided to take a more proactive approach to my social life. I joined a local hiking club, something I had always wanted to do but never found the time for. The club met every weekend, exploring different trails and enjoying the beauty of nature. It was invigorating to be outdoors, breathing fresh air, and pushing my physical limits. The first hike was challenging, but the camaraderie of the group made it enjoyable. I met people from all walks of life, each with their own stories and experiences. One person in particular stood out, Emma, a spirited and adventurous woman who had a zest for life that was contagious. We hit it off immediately, our conversations flowing effortlessly as we trekked through the scenic trails. "What's your story, John?" Emma asked during one of our hikes, her curiosity genuine. I shared my journey, including the painful parts. Emma listened without judgment, her empathy evident. "Sounds like you've been through a lot, but you're here, and that's what matters," she said with a reassuring smile. "Thanks, Emma. It feels good to be moving forward," I replied, appreciating her positive outlook. Over the next few months, Emma and I became close friends. We hiked together regularly, and she introduced me to other activities I had never considered before, like rock climbing and kayaking. Her adventurous spirit was a breath of fresh air, and I found myself embracing new experiences with enthusiasm. One evening, after a particularly exhilarating climb, we sat on a rocky ledge overlooking the valley below. The sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, and the world felt peaceful. "Life has a funny way of working out, doesn't it?" Emma mused, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "It does," I agreed. "I never imagined I'd be here, doing this, but I'm grateful for it." Emma turned to me, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "You deserve to be happy, John. Don't let the past hold you back." Her words resonated deeply, and I realized she was right. The past was behind me, and the future was mine to shape. I had spent so long dwelling on what was lost that I almost forgot the potential of what could be. As the months passed, I continued to build a life that was fulfilling and meaningful. I invested more time in my hobbies, rekindled old friendships, and made new ones. My relationship with Laura blossomed into a deep, supportive friendship, and Emma became a significant part of my life, her adventurous spirit encouraging me to live fully. The transformation wasn't just external. It was internal as well. Therapy helped me process the lingering pain and resentment, and I gradually let go of the bitterness that had taken root. I learned to forgive, not just Julie, but myself as well. Mistakes had been made, but they didn't define me. I was more than my past, and my future was bright. One day, while clearing out the attic, I stumbled upon a box of old photographs. They captured moments from my marriage, happy times, vacations, celebrations. For the first time, I looked at them without a pang of sorrow. Instead, I saw them as part of my journey, chapters in the story of my life that had led me to where I was now. I decided to create a new photo album, one that documented my journey of healing and new beginnings. It included pictures from my hikes, outings with friends, and moments of joy and laughter. As I compiled the album, I realized how far I had come and how much I had grown. On a sunny afternoon, I invited Emma and Laura over for a barbecue. As we sat in the backyard, enjoying good food and great company, I felt a deep sense of contentment. The pain of the past had faded, replaced by a newfound appreciation for the present and excitement for the future. As the evening drew to a close, Emma raised her glass. "To new beginnings," she toasted, her eyes sparkling with warmth. We clinked glasses, and I looked around at the faces of my friends, feeling grateful for their support and companionship. To new beginnings, I echoed, embracing the promise of the future.